Thank you, Simon, and good morning and a big welcome to all of you. As always, a great conference organised and great attendance. The conference gives us the time to consider and reflect on the challenges and opportunities before us, and of course in excellent company. Last year, my speech started by saying that it was the third and final time that I would be addressing the CCN Conference as your chairman. But here I am again 1 year on. But I am seriously very grateful to you all for extending my stay as your chairman for the fourth and what will be my final year in what is going to be a very important and significant year ahead. The County Council's network is highly regarded and respected not only amongst our member councils, but nationally and within the corridors of power at Westminster and Whitehall. Our reputation has been hard-earned, our campaigning measured, considered and well thought through, differentiating the ground upon which we campaign, not just jumping on every available bandwagon for the sake of publicity. Our approach is one of intelligence, evidence-based and assertive. We frequently create national headlines, as indeed we have in recent weeks with great success. At this point, I am sure you would like to join me in thanking our hard-working, small and dedicated team of 7 at the CCN headquarters. They work so hard to support all our members all year round, making it happen, and including the enormous amount of hard work that's involved in arranging this conference. So if the 7 would like to stand up, I think we should give them a very good round of applause. The 1. Usually, I start my speech by reflecting on the year gone by and the year ahead. However, the priorities of last year will continue and are ongoing and unresolved, and as always, dominated by money and finance. Staying financially solvent in the last year has been a challenge for us all. I said in my speech last year, and I quote from it, "Put frankly, counties more than any other sector of local government need a lifeline from central government over the next financial lifeline from central government over the next 2 financial years," which is why CCN launched a successful campaign for additional funding earlier this year. CCN have utilised the spotlight on our county councils by spelling out clearly to government and our members of parliament the severity of the financial situation that we were all in. Our campaigning exceeded all expectations. Without this additional funding from government in the autumn budget, the consequences would have been, in my view, torrid. So to government, thank you for listening and thank you for responding. Later today, we have the opportunity to show our appreciation to the Secretary of State, James Brokenshire, and alongside that tomorrow, Rishi Sunak, the local government minister, leading on the funding issues. They made strenuous efforts. They went the extra mile in securing a better outcome in Philip Hammond's budget announcements a few weeks ago. But we are under no illusion that the challenges that we face in the future will have somehow disappeared. Obtaining a good outcome from the spending review and the fair funding formula will be our principal objectives in the coming months. This is alongside influencing the long-awaited social care green paper and helping to design a simpler business rate retention model that rewards growth. And importantly, delivering fundamental reform to the new homes bonus. To help achieve this, I'm delighted to be officially launching our new campaign, A Fairer Future for Counties, this very day. This new campaign will focus on the ongoing financial pressures we face and providing government with the evidence base to feed into the fair funding review. In launching this campaign, I want to make it abundantly clear that the County Council network is in no way trying to skew the dice to the advantage of counties, but to provide government with robust evidence across all parts of local government. We may gain on the swings and lose on some of the roundabouts. However, one thing I am sure of is that provided the new funding model is fair, needs-led and evidence-based, counties' share of the funding cake will be proportionately greater than under the current complex, opaque system that it replaces. I say this with confidence because of the quality of CCN's research and advocacy that they provide. Take, for instance, adult learning disabilities, now exceeding in some authorities the net cost of providing social care services to the elderly and frail. Analysis published today by CCN shows that the annual cost of providing services to our adult disabled residents will be almost £2 billion higher in 2024-25 than a decade ago, with 49% of these costs falling on our member authorities. In addition, our research shows that the number of adults with learning disabilities is a third higher in CCN member authorities compared to the London boroughs. These are big, big differentials, which must surely be reflected and weighted in the new funding formula. Residents with adult learning disabilities now thankfully have a much longer life expectancy, greater independence, and a greatly improved quality of life. However, many, understandably, are restricted in their earning capacity, and therefore all the costs fall directly on our councils. Similarly, counties, as a fact of rurality, face a disproportionate burden in providing mainstream schools transport and even more significantly, special educational needs transport. CCN has shown that counties' costs to provide school transport are many, many times higher than in urban areas. And again, research published this week will show that SEN home-to-school transport costs have increased by 30% since 2014. In education, our statutory duty to provide a sufficiency of school places alongside the increasing demand for high-needs funding are creating real and significant pressures to both our capital and revenue budgets. To ensure the long-term survival of councils, these enormous extra costs must be recognised in the new fair funding model. And for the fair funding review to be a success, significant additional resources for local government need to be found through next year's spending review if we are to continue to deliver the complex range of services to our residents and businesses that reflect the growing demands and pressures on our budgets. I believe that good progress is being made. Local government ministers highly value CCN's input and are keen to engage further. To help us in this endeavour, CCN have commissioned PricewaterhouseCoopers to provide independent, robust evidence of the demand-led pressures and, importantly, the comparisons between ourselves in the counties and our metropolitan counterparts, where indeed pressures and needs may be different and should be, therefore, reflected if the formula is to be truly fair. And PwC will be expanding on this vital piece of work to conference after my speech. And if we don't provide that evidence and go the extra mile, we're rue the day that we didn't all work together, working with the other sectors in local government to make sure we drive home those massive differences and disparities between different types of councils. But it is not just about funding. Our campaign for a fairer future for counties is about so much more. Understandably, through the Brexit negotiations, devolution has taken backstage. Our campaign to influence government to trust, devolve and empower to strategic counties must be reinvigorated. calling for Westminster to let go, devolve and reduce the bureaucratic burden and prescription from Whitehall. We must set out our case for change that has the potential to improve a whole range of local government services and, more broadly, other public services delivered in our areas. For example, we need to be further empowered to help and support the integration of health and social care, empowered to grow our economies in partnership with local enterprise partnerships, providing growth and prosperity alongside skills fit for the future. We need greater strategic planning powers, supporting accelerated housing delivery and infrastructure for future growth. Counties could achieve so much more if given the tools. I hope it won't be a distraction, but on the screen next to me, whilst I'm speaking, you will see a few photographs taken from a book, The History of Kent County Council, reminding us all of how it used to be, and so much has gone backwards in those powers that the county councils had. There's one particular photograph in there that you'll see, I think dated in 1966, where the county council midwives are trialling mobile telephony in a 1966 Austin Mini, which is one of my favourites when it comes up. In those days, counties had responsibility for community and mental health, had responsibility for further education and skills, policing, and even, as you'll see from one of the photographs, the County Home Guard. We need to change the direction of travel to deliver a fairer future for our counties that draws on our great past. For instance, in the field of health and social care, while we await with bated breath for the Social Care Green Paper, we must continue to argue strongly for greater leverage for local government in bringing about that health and care integration, delivering better use of the National Health Service pound with a social care pound alongside, and in so doing, delivering better health and well-being outcomes for our residents. Very much in line with Heather Jameson's excellent editorial in the Municipal Journal last week entitled, "Healing Health is a Local Government Issue." And I quote from that article in which Heather said, "It is true that the National Health Service has become a national hospital service, driving people towards A&E and the most costly parts of the system for ailments that could and should be caught before they reach crisis point. That investment that's needed in good local care to avoid hospitalisation and help people out of hospital quicker. Clinical commissioning groups, I'm sure everybody's experienced it across the country, have been reluctant to engage with local government and put up barriers. But where local government has penetrated, a few spectacular outcomes have been delivered. And I cite one example in Canterbury, Kent, where barriers have come down and integration and joint working has taken place. And here, the data's there to be seen. Admissions into hospitals have reduced by 20%, and similarly, the timely discharge out of hospital has been accelerated significantly and saved the clinical commissioning groups bucket loads of money at the same time. So we must campaign for a greater investment in community health services situated and grouped around GP practices. Surely, with this significant additional money being invested in the National Health Service and the forthcoming 10-year plan, a greater proportion of this money needs to be spent on local care, community and primary health care services. Therefore, as part of a funding integration package with the NHS, I believe that this should mean at least 20% of the additional money, the £20 billion plus, should be invested directly by councils in community-based care to meet growing demand and invest in that local care agenda. On the growth agenda, both housing and economic, we need to bring back spatial planning powers to county councils. It's worth remembering that prior to 1976, all the major planning applications were decided by the county council. And now, look where we are. We need greater powers in setting strategic infrastructure levies across our geographies. In two-tier areas, the current CIL and Section 106 developer contribution arrangements leak like a sieve and miss the opportunity to collect a significant additional contributions to fund that essentially needed infrastructure provision. The recently announced Oliver Letwin independent review of build-out report, rather dull title, has outlined some important recommendations for both speeding up build-out rates and land value capture to fund infrastructure. These recommendations, I commend the report to you, need to be seriously considered by local and central government, and in my view, most of the recommendations supported. On economic growth, industrial strategies, shared prosperity funds and skills, our future relationship with local enterprise partnerships will be crucial, and we must continue our campaign to change the direction of travel by government in their proposed strengthened local enterprise partnerships announced in July of this year. And in it, the proposed downgrading of local government's representation on local enterprise partnership boards are very much a retrograde and backward step. And if government is to further devolve skills funding through LEPs, these governance arrangements become even more important, and we must stand our ground to keep that 50-50 parity between business and local government. And finally, our message to government. Government, we cannot do the impossible. We must have sustainable, sufficient and fair funding. We are here to help you improve and transform public services and deliver better value for money for the public pound. Empower us. Thank you.